Okay, so I'm Moroni Flake. And while we get set up, while we wait for a few more people to join, I just thought I'd give a quick little thought that I had this morning. So I I know we're in a stressful industry and we chose that. We put that on ourselves. And we all have our own individual stresses in life. And sometimes they get heavy. And for me, winter especially seems to get rough. So I have my own mental health stuff I've had to deal with. And I had kind of a slower morning this morning. And as I was walking along the path that I frequently walk on, I noticed these little shiny flecks in the asphalt. And I was like, oh, that looks cool. And then I started to notice that the leaves are even more yellow and orange than they were last week. And I just noticed these small, simple things. I felt the warmth of the sun on my face. And then I decided to take my headphones and I slowed it down from two times speed to normal speed. And then I decided to turn it off altogether and just have this quiet moment of gratitude. And I felt for me that nothing in my situation from yesterday to today had substantially changed, but my experience or my feeling uh, was entirely different. And so I share that kind of thinking about my wife. Used to she was a fifth, sorry, sixth grade teacher for the first 4 years of our marriage. She always had these motivational Monday moments. So it's like, okay, let's frame and then let's get into the work. So there's my one thought as we get started here, and we'll jump in. Let me share my screen. Okay. Whoopsies, wrong button. Okay, so today we're going to talk about uh, potential ways we could improve uh, our engagement with the audiences that we work with within international services and how we engage with international students and scholars. And I'll share a little bit about Homebase, what we do, and then Geet and Sharon will share theirs as well. So as a quick introduction, I've been um, I've been in international education since 2014, working with international education software since then, and started Homebase in 2019, and have been working and building and learning and growing with that ever since. So that's me. Geet and Sharon, you want to do introductions?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Geet Vanaik. I'm the executive director at Washington University in St. Louis, also known as WashU. We have the privilege to serve 7,000 international students and scholars. And, just to piggyback on what Miro and I said, we try to reflect on that and we feel very privileged to have that role and to be able to do that. And we want to do it really, really well, especially in this time where it's so unpredictable. Everyone is stressed. And we really want to be an office and an institution that's really responsive. And that's why we're so thankful to Homebase. It allows us to get really good information to our audience at the appropriate time with the limited staffing that we have. So I'm very thankful for that. And looking forward to this conversation and nice to see all of you today. Sharon?
Thanks, Geet. Hi, I'm Sharon Ericsson. I'm an international student advisor at University of California, Davis, Services for International Students and Scholars. We serve over 7,000 international students. And I've been working with Homebase and Moroni for over 3 years now. I'll get into it later, but we just really strive to make sure our students are engaged and receiving the best possible services. So it's been a really great partnership.
Okay, and I'll just say that even though both Sharon and Geet come from fairly large institutions, we work with every institution of all sorts and sizes. So we work with medical institutes, research institutes, schools, one-person offices with as few as, say, 10 international students, all the way up to many of the largest hosting institutions. And so hopefully the principles that we talked through today are applicable to everybody. And even if you don't use Homebase, hopefully you get some principles of engagement with whatever systems that you do use. All right, so where did this come from? What's the quick history? So in my time working with international services offices, I started to see consistent challenges from students and scholars. And so if you've ever been on a discovery call with me, you know that I just ask a lot of questions. And I'm just trying to understand what people are experiencing, where things might be breaking down. And so in 2019, we started an experiment to say, hey, if we change the way that we're engaging, if we engage earlier, if we engage provide the right information at the right time in the right ways, that might be on desktop, that might be through mobile, that might be through a required course, that might be through just an email or a direct message. So really crafting the ways that we're engaging with international students and scholars. Can we, number one, improve their experience? And then number two, reduce the workload on the International Services Office. And then number three, improve key outcomes in either their retention, their learning, avoiding immigration challenges down the road. And we found this to be successful. And it's going to be something that we continue to iterate on. What we've done is we've created a community of universities where there's maybe 100 different experiments happening at the same time of, hey, what is more effective to provide for STEM OPT? And how do we want to advise through STEM OPT? And or how do we want to advise during the earlier stages? And so you'll hear different approaches, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss that. We'll have a community resources section where you can see other courses, right? So all of the courses that Geet uses are shared with the community. So you can go in and you can quickly understand what are they providing and can we learn from that? What do we want to use within our own? And so we provide all of the templates that you see here. And then there's other use cases beyond this as well. So for example, we started with pre-arrival and orientation for J's. We then moved to pre-arrival and orientation for for students. Then it was, hey, these same principles apply during OPT or STEM OPT, CPT. So we started to expand from there. And then the UC Davis team created a cool I-765 guide. So we adapted that and made it available for general use to everybody. And then H-1Bs, and then departmental staff. How do we engage and train departmental staff before because we're seeing the same repetitive questions coming in from them as well. So how do we effectively engage there? We moved into pre-I-20 issuance, and how do we do financial document automation and issue I-20s quicker and more efficiently? So we're starting to continually expand this. Some areas are like, hey, this is working really well. Hey, this isn't working as well as we expected. So what do we tweak to help it improve? And so these are just some of the ways that it's used. But we'll integrate with different systems, whether it's Synapsys, Teradata, JB International, Slate, Banner, Workday, PeopleSoft. And we'll try to understand what are you working with, and then how do we create a more effective sequence or process from there. And this is an evolution. So number one thing we want to do with international students is we just want to improve it. So how do we? And that's typically by simplifying it. And so we simplify the experience. We create a greater sense of belonging. We can address regulatory, logistical, cultural, or social challenges earlier or in a more timely way as issues come up, and we'll continually iterate from there. And so there are a few ways that Homebase is used. This is going to be more of an introductory conversation. So we'll cover modules. I just kind of went through templates and pre-built tools that we have, like our OPT calculator. We're continually adding new things. Like yesterday, we were talking with the Harvard International Office, and they said, hey, we like how you approach STEM OPT, but we think that there's a lot better way to do certain areas. Some information should be required, some should be optional. We'd like to have a STEM OPT calculator. We'd like to present this information differently. So we take that feedback and we say, okay, let's build a new resource. So now we're planning to build a STEM OPT calculator, which will just be a little bit different. So we'll continually iterate over time. So today we're going to cover modules. We'll briefly cover the community, and we'll cover integrations. But there's a lot more here and a lot more different use cases that we won't get into just because we won't have time. And so examples are automated workflows. Those are customized student journeys or paths of when am I sending different communication? When am I enrolling them in different modules? And it's just creating an automated path there. And number two would be mobile engagement. Another one would be email communication through Homebase. So if you're doing that through Mailchimp or other platforms currently and experiencing any challenges, you could bring that in here. Peer mentor programs. So that's matching, that's training mentors, that's doing community groups, mentor groups, all of the different areas there. Housing resources in the marketplace, financial document automation. A couple universities are working on bringing this as an alumni portal or an alumni community. And that'll continue to grow. So there's a quick introduction of what we will or will not cover. And with that, I will turn it over to Geet.
Yeah, so I think I've had the privilege to use Homebase actually at three institutions. Just what Moroni said, I started and my team actually started using it at Greenville University, and we were a very small office with about 100 to 150 students at any given time. Really did not have huge budgets to invest in tech, and that's where we first got introduced to Homebase and started working with them. And then Moroni started talking about it at a NASA conference. And that's when I was at Northwestern. And, I was dealing with a lot of pain points. And the biggest challenge I had was being at a large institution, students, their appetite, the scholar appetite for more information, not having enough staff. We had done during the pandemic, done a course, an orientation course in Canvas, and it was such a pain point to update, to give access, and just keep using it over and over. Like the access part was so huge. Students from China could not use Canvas. Sometimes they didn't have credentials till the very last minute. They were transfer students. The editing process, you have to edit and then you have to publish and then you have to make sure like, you delete the old content. I mean, just dealing with Canvas was a big pain, and my staff just could not keep up. Tracking completion, so we would have to literally go into Canvas and like download a list, see who did it, who didn't do it, who do we need to follow up with at a time where we were the busiest we ever could be. People are checking in, we're trying to activate CVIS records, and then we're also having to like go back in, look at Excel sheets, figure out who's done the course, who hasn't. And the content, like to build in questions, it wasn't easy as well. So that was like the biggest pain point. I had a part-time staff member dedicated to just dealing with Canvas during the week of orientation to make sure everyone was doing the course, everyone had access to the course. And we didn't see like this level of engagement that we saw with Homebase. So people weren't coming up to us during orientation and saying, "Oh, I loved your Canvas course. I learned so much." They were coming up and saying, "Oh, I didn't remember doing it," or "How do I get access?" And the reason we started using Canvas because we were like, "Oh, that's what they use in the classroom. So this will give a pre-introduction to the classroom Canvas." But the use is so different that we didn't find that value proposition with Canvas that we thought that we would. And that's why we spent time building it and trying to use it. So that's how we started. And then I think next slide, Moroni. We were like, we can't start with just the student model first. Like we have to figure out on a smaller scale how this is going to work. And I needed to get buy-in from my team who was already overwhelmed and did not have the appetite to take on another project, right? So that's something you're probably dealing with right now is people like they're so burned out with the news, everything else, enrollment numbers, why do this now? And I would encourage you to say, why not do this now? Because our community needs a lot more information from us more than ever. Like we cannot have situations where students are missing important deadlines or not thinking through our processes. So I think like now is the time to have something like this. So at Northwestern, we started off with a J Scholar pre-arrival orientation. It was so successful. I had almost little to zero pushback from the staff. So instead of like doing a PowerPoint, we invested in building this course. And it was so easy to build the course. We were reaching out to Moroni if we needed any help. We did it, I think, in a week. And then we kept updating it as more things came up. It was so easy to give people access. There was nothing proprietary in our course. It was just curated content that we already had in PowerPoints or on our website. So we were able to give access to anyone, like open access. That was a big deal. People could access it in different countries without any issue. They didn't need duo or single sign-on. They were able to complete the course without issues, no glitches. The course produced a certificate at the end, which we used as completion and part of the check-in process. So our Scholar pilot was so successful. I had zero pushback when I wanted to implement this on the student side. I had my Scholar team sharing with the student side how easy the process was. And so it was an easy win to expand it to a much larger population. And then we started off with, thinking about H-1B, because that's another pain point for us. People aren't trained, especially departments. And so that was something that we were easily able to build out as well. And then another area where I would say, and even to this day, I consider it the danger zone for my team is OPT and STEM OPT. We just launched our STEM OPT course at WashU in the last month. And we're excited that you're talking to Harvard, Moroni, any ideas they have. We want to iterate in ours eventually. I think that's the great thing about Homebase. It's like a community. And like if other schools are doing something different, we're always open to looking at it and how can we use what they're using and what works for them maybe could work for us. So with the danger zone with OPT and STEM OPT, we know that there's possibility of a lot of places where there could be miscommunication and there can also be, unfortunately DSO error. And to me, that's really risky, right? So the best way to prevent all of that is to have something where the students are really methodically, slowly going through a course, understanding all the ways that things could go wrong with OPT and STEM OPT to make sure they're avoiding it. And they're taking control of this application process through doing the course, right? And through doing the assessment. So even if they skip the course, at least the assessment really shows them all the pitfalls that can go wrong. So when they're doing their own application, hopefully they will remember the questions that they had to answer and think through, which they can apply to their OPT or STEM OPT application and avoid the common areas where what lead to denials. Because unfortunately, with OPT and STEM OPT denials, depending on the time it happens, we don't have an opportunity to correct that. So, like for my team, I feel like it's extremely critical to have an OPT and a STEM OPT course that the students have to complete before we will issue them an I-20 for those things, right? And now with the thing that you've just seen in the news, the project firewall, the extra checks on employment for STEM OPT students, it's even more critical than it has ever been before, that students have the right information before they're applying for these benefits. Again, there's training courses that we're thinking about because we need our departments to know when they submit documents. And like I said, we're working on other ideas of using Homebase. The great thing is, when we purchase Homebase, we purchased a large enough package where it was unlimited. So we can use have different uses of how we use this platform. We can offer it to other departments outside of OISS, and really get them to engage with us on this platform, but other things that they're doing, and then we're aware of it as well. So again, I cannot say enough about all of our uses, and we're always coming up with new ways to use Homebase. And Moroni is always getting a message from me. So, okay, so what are some of the results that we saw, right? So I'm talking about all these things, but what does that mean for all of you? Um, I will say significantly, once we launched our first course, we had a 50% reductions in our general inbox. And that was huge for us because that was something that we were really struggling with, is keeping up with email responses, responding in time. Like at first our response times were like 7 business days. And we know that like that's not something that we want. It's out of desperation when that happens because you don't have enough people. We had fewer walk-ins. When people did come in, they asked very specific questions of things that they learned in the course. And that was really helpful. The templates were huge for us, especially starting off. And that's why we feel very comfortable sharing our templates with all of you because we want to give back to all the support that we received. And this whole thing about not having to go back and track people, like we don't activate CVIS records for individuals that have not completed the course. It's really that simple for us, and we feel really good about that, and the team feels really good about that because we know even if they're not paying attention to our in-person orientation or they're jet lagged or they just couldn't be there, that we have a compliance check that we can do. So the satisfaction, we have had almost 100% satisfaction with completion. Very, very positive feedback from our students. And what I found the most meaningful is when we're presenting during orientation, students were helping each other with things that they had learned in the home-based course. They were asking questions based on things that they had learned in the course and they wanted to understand more. They wanted to understand how it applied to them. And to me, that was like the most significant thing that I saw during orientation, having these courses already like sent and have them completed before they got to campus. We could focus. The other thing that we shifted is a lot of focus on in-person engagement and having that social, cultural content that we could focus on and spend instead of spending hours and hours and hours on immigration regulations, especially when they're tired and they're thinking about other basic needs and not necessarily immigration regulations when they come to campus. And this idea of constant improvement, like we as an institution and as a small staff cannot constantly iterate and innovate when it comes to this, right? So having Homebase as our partner is as a network, a community helping us think through that makes our workload and provides good customer service to the students that are coming, right? Because we know enrollment's an issue and all of the students that have struggled and made it here, we want to make sure they have a solid immigration foundation when they decide to graduate from WashU and go do other things. So that's very, very important to us. We are a fully compliance-based office, and this is a critical tool that we use daily. Okay, I'll hand it over to UC Davis. And I'm happy to
Sharon,
take
you're on mute.
questions and if there's any questions in chat.
Thanks, Geet. Well, I resonate a lot with Geet's story because it really sounds so much like the UC Davis story. Before 2022, before we started using Homebase, yes, pandemic sent us into, wow, we really need to move everything online. We had done orientation in person and then also an extended orientation in Canvas, coupled with some pre-arrival stuff that we did in Synopsys with some videos on YouTube and Youku. And it just was a lot of separate pieces that we had to manage. And it felt like every year we had to reorient ourselves, like what is it what are we doing this year? Where's this, where's that? And at J1 orientation, at F1. And when Moroni came to me after I spoke on a panel for online orientation, and presented Homebase, it just sort of all came together and I just thought, wow, this is a solution that could really work for us. And what I really appreciate about Homebase is the user experience is so easy, and the experience for, not only for our students and scholars, but for us as the people creating the content, it was very, very easy to use. So, we had a similar kind of experience with Canvas. Yes, we had someone on our team learn how to use Canvas, but it was very labor intensive for a learning management system to then connect it back to well, first we had to follow up with students and stay on them because we gave them a long period of time to complete this extended orientation once they arrived. And it was following up. Did they do it? Did they not? Matching it up with data manually, making sure we see in a checklist in Synopsys, did they do it? Did they not? It just was a lot of work, coupled with the same kind of inbox influx of questions throughout the spring, summer, before we start in late September. So we just thought this is a great way to, really consolidate all of our information. And, we love Synopsys. Synopsys is great and what it does for us. But as far as having, we wanted to really add more engagement, more of the sort of quiz questions, knowledge checks, and you can do that in Synopsys, and I did do that, but it's a little bit, it's not as easy to build to make things look the way you want to look necessarily. You can get the job done, but Homebase was just way more interactive and way more options. Next slide, please. So what we ended up doing, so after we adopted Homebase, so we've now got a Homebase pre-arrival course, and we have our students they're required to do that before we'll issue the I-20. So it's all the information about, the I-20 or DS 2019, the visa, all of that, like learn about entering and arriving, all of that kind of content. We want them to get that before they even get their I-20, because we found when we did it after, they didn't all do it. So it also like enculturates them into Homebase. And I think one of the reasons why it's been very successful is that it is a home base for students. It is a place that they can come back to and they know that they're going to get the information they need. We then do some virtual yield webinars, and we do Q&A webinars with students before they arrive, and we're advertising those through Homebase. So we're maintaining a continuous connection through Homebase, through the announcement section. And then every time we put something on there, they're like, okay, this is my international office. This is my home base. This is, a place that I'm gonna, come to get the resources and support I need. Then we have a Homebase F1 and J1 arrival orientation in August. And right now we have them separate, F1 and J1, because we used to have it combined, and it was why, and F1 doesn't need to read information about J1. So we separated those. Now with some of the logic, display logic and such, we could put it all back in one course and have the right audience to see the right information. But we really were intent on making sure that students were getting and learning the information they need about their status, all of the things about the student immigration regs. So they're required to do that. They get a hold if they don't do it. We have it, so that there's no manual tracking. It's all done in Synopsys. And we're kind of slower to use the Synopsys integration because we had to do all our vendor risk assessments and all that, get that approved through the university. But we found an easy fix for that to still have things integrated with Synopsys just by creating, a form. Students upload their home-based certificate of completion. So all of our students are getting the arrival orientation done way faster than they have ever done before, 100% completion rates. We don't have to put registration holds on very many students. And if we do, they, the few that they're just missing the emails, they're not paying attention, they quickly get that, and then we get them on their way. And then we can really focus our time to do in-person welcome events and the community engagement. Instead of focusing on the immigration regulations in person, we're focusing on building the relationship, building the connection, helping them connect with each other, helping them develop their support system. Next slide, please. So we also, have started to use Homebase in so many different ways. One thing I'll say that we are really careful, the great thing about Homebase is like they have content that you can use and you can modify, you can customize. We love at UC Davis to customize everything. But it's really nice to just start with a template and then customize it to what we want. We have some guiding principles that really, I think, help us with that student engagement experience, which are sense of place. So everything in Homebase, we're going to make sure we have sense of place. We're going to put photos, videos. They're going to be videos of us, their advisors. There's going to be videos of current students and our global ambassador mentors. So they can, even before they arrive, start to get, just acclimated so that they have a smoother transition. We have a just-in-time philosophy where they are getting the information they need when they need it, and that we're not being redundant, and that we're not, let's say we have information on our website, we're not going to copy and paste everything. We might link out. And that way we also, if something needs to be updated, all the many changes that are happening, we just update it in one place and it's current. We have, there's other guiding principles that we have, the engagement piece, like building in knowledge checks, building in questions, building in chats, building in ways that they're going to engage with the content is going to help them learn it and help them hopefully have less potential status violations in the future, and think back to, oh wait, I learned something in Homebase, and they can go back to that at any time during their time with us. So yeah, this is the list of all the different ways we use it. We launched the OPT tutorial and a separate I-765 guide. The reason we did it separate was because of that whole issue when students submit to USCIS before they got the OPT recommendation on their I-20. And so we did it again, just in time, step by step. Do this and then do this, then you'll submit to USCIS. So that's working really well. And we've gotten great feedback from students on our OPT tutorial. And then we have the STEM OPT. We are about to launch that in another 2 weeks. We took the template on taxes from Homebase, and then our previous director went through and made some additions to it so that we have a customized income tax course that will relate or release later this year. There's lots of other ways, it's like you can think about all the different ways that we, again, thinking about like the student development and what they're going to need when they're going to need it. Mental health, we want, I'd like to do a course for that. Engaging our alumni, we'll do it for CPT. There's just so many different ways. And, I think a lot of the time now because we're dealing with so many potential changes and policies and regs. A lot of time, sometimes we'll be like, well, we want to do this, but let's wait until like the changes come. My response now is, no, we can build the content we want now because it's so easy to change it in Homebase. Editing is so easy. Before, we used to do a lot of long form videos, like Zoom videos, and then we'd be like, oh no, we have to edit another video, and none of us have great, we're not, professionals in video editing. So it would always be a challenge, but now it's just so much easier, and we'll use like short snippet videos, but have more content in other ways in Homebase that it's just really easy to update if there's a change. Next slide, please. We use the community feature of Homebase with, there's a student directory, announcements, events, ask us a question, find a room or roommate. That's been one of the most popular sections of our community, where students are reaching out and finding other students to lease a room from or share an apartment with. And we've had really good feedback from that. I did a focus group with students, and they said that was a great feature. And, again, weaving in our guiding principles, even the announcement banner you'll see there, again, it's the sense of place. So every single page, every single thing in Homebase has a separate banner that we create, and it's got a different photo of our campus, our students, just conveying that sense of place and community. Here's just an example of announcements or mentor program and, student health and counseling services. But things that we announce on here have really driven our engagement. We've seen attendance at webinars and in-person events double. This year, we had the biggest welcome ice cream social for undergrads that we've ever had. Our grad student social, same thing. So the way that I think it's a combination of students can get reminders, emails when an announcement is posted. But we used to do emails, so why is engagement higher now? I think students like coming here, and I think students associate it with it's a memorable thing. It's home base. That's where I'm going to get the information, and so it's been really, really helpful for us, and it has reduced our inbox, our emails. We still get tons and tons of them, but one thing that we can do is if we're noticing something is coming up frequently in an email, we can post it as an announcement. We can post it in the content of a course to help them answer the question before they even have to ask.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Sharon, because it really is like an iterative process. You're continually looking at what questions are we getting most frequently, and then do you create content? Do you create knowledge checks within the modules? Do you post announcements? So these announcements go out as emails. If the students have downloaded the app, it would go out as a push notification as well. And so they're ideally getting it in multiple ways. But yeah, that typically is a feedback that we're hearing is that there's an increased engagement. Sharon, I can just run through these if you prefer. All right, so we have sent thousands of surveys. We've had tens of thousands of students complete surveys. So we get, and then we also do conversations with them. Just to understand what they're experiencing, where the friction points are for them. And so oftentimes, if the student is coming to you with a question, it's because something has broken down in the process. It's because they're confused, they can't find the information they're looking for. And so we're having not only, if it's them not sending you an email, a better experience for you is a reduction in your workload, but it's also an improved experience for them. Some schools say, hey, we're not seeing so much of a reduction in email as a total shift in the types of questions over email from 101 level questions to, hey, here's what I'm experiencing. How do I apply this to me personally? Because my situation might be a little bit different, and that avoids challenges down the road. And so what we're hearing from students as to what they enjoy the most, simple, concise, clear, timely, engaging. So they love photos. Sharon talked about photos of their campus. That is number one of the big things that we would say when you're building your course is bring in the resources that you have access to. And one of those things would be photos of campus. And so I loved how Sharon says sense of place. The students love videos, right? So we have about 25 videos already built into the platform on videos from things like maintaining your immigration status, understanding the health insurance within the United States. I am going to bring over a quick view of one of the UC Davis courses. So on their arrival orientation, on their pre-arrival, they have videos of students, maybe 4 different students saying, here's a few things I love about campus. We're super excited to welcome you to campus. Well, on here, they have videos of their staff. And these are like 1 minute, 30-second videos where they record it once and then they post it. And then each student gets to view it on their own time and feel that connection to the institutional staff. And so, so it's scalable in the sense of like creating connection at scale. And so UC Davis has done a really great job of doing this. And so you'll notice, by the way, I think most people should have access to our webinar series that we've done. And so if you have access to that, you also have access to the community resources. So UC Davis has a lot of courses. Obviously, students don't see all of that, but the community resources here show other institutions' modules. So, for example, how does University of Florida interact with their departmental staff? So they have this module, and this is probably our most requested hey, can we clone that module and then do that within our organization? And then you'll have, here are the different UC Davis courses. And then, here's orientation at Northwestern and University of Toledo and Gator Gateway at University of Florida. And so you'll come in here and you'll be able to see all the different ways other institutions are engaging and get a quick idea of what that looks like. But you'll be able to see the course I just showed for UC Davis there. So for students, they're liking the engagement. It's intuitive, it's easy to navigate, easy to access. And one thing that's we often get a question of like, hey, why can't we just put this information on our website? You can, you should. And it should complement your website. So oftentimes you're not building all of your housing information within Homebase. You're just saying, hey, here are a few things that are specific for international students, and then go check out our off-campus housing page, and you link over to that. And so you're not duplicating your effort. But the thing is with a website is they can go anywhere. They can click anywhere. They don't know that they've seen crucial information, and you don't know that they've seen and understood crucial information. And so by having a clear step-by-step process where you're checking information along the way or checking understanding along the way, they're not getting lost. And so it's intuitive, it's easy to follow, and that's something that students appreciate. Second, another thing is creating a sense of belonging. I think Sharon's hit on that pretty hard. Helping students answer questions they didn't even know they had. They become more self-reliant, and then they improve the in-person orientation. Here's just some stats from surveys that we do. 99.8% recommend it for other international students and scholars. 98% had no technical difficulty, regardless of what country they're coming from. So we really work to understand, hey, what feedback is coming in. So a while back, some students said, hey, your videos are broken. They're not working. So we work on fixing things as they come up. And so also reduction in staff workload. I think they've hit on, Sharon and Geet have hit on this, but one thing that I would add to this is that it increases stability during uncertain times or through staff changes. And so a number of the universities that we've worked with have in a short period of time lost almost all their leadership. So say director, assistant director, and maybe 80% of their staff within like a 6-month period. And that's a lot to go through. But because the processes are centralized, it makes it much more smooth. It's, hey, here's where they access resources. Here's where students access resources. So it just creates an increased stability within the office, especially through uncertainty. So that's one thing that I would highlight there. All right, and then there's some student feedback. We'll send that out afterwards. Do you want to by the way, you can put any questions in the chat. Let me just think if I have anything else I missed really quickly.
I think there's a question in the chat while you're looking at that, Moroni, we can answer, and I think Sharon, it's directed to you, but I can also answer. So yeah, we used to do something similar to monthly webinars, and we still do that in different ways, but we definitely see that students either they come to the monthly webinar and they haven't done the home-based course and they're completely like surprised by it and they're like, oh, I need to do this. And then a lot of their questions are answered through that. Or they've done the course and then they want to talk through different scenarios, which I think is really beneficial for the students that haven't done it or haven't looked into any of it. So it makes kind of like that student to student question contact really meaningful. So that's been our experience with just doing the webinars in conjunction to the course. Sharon, I don't know if you have a different perspective.
Yeah, I would say that we have really set up our OPT course to empower the students to get the information they need in a way that makes sense to them, is really clear, has supporting documents and videos and checklists and such. So it's reduced our student appointments. We used to have a process where we called them OPT packet checks, when they used to do the paper. Obviously it's all online now, but they would still do appointments. They'd meet with their advisor, their tier 2 advisor while they were in the process of OPT, and then they would meet with a tier 1 advisor to go over their application, make sure they did it all right. And we've cut all that out with that I-765 guide. We've designed it that it is so self-sufficient that they can do it on their own. They do not need to get it checked off with an advisor. So it's saving us time for sure. Students can still meet with us if they have questions, but it's, we say do the course first. They have to prove they've done the course, and then it's really just like very specific questions, not tell me about the process. How do I do this?
Okay, so another question. By the way, Courtney, do you mind helping manage the chat and the questions? I'm a little bit slow. So, okay, so Courtney, by the way, do you want to do a quick introduction? Courtney joined Homebase. What has it been? 6 months ago?
Yeah, about 4 to 6 months, somewhere around there. Yeah. So hi, I'm Courtney Jacobson. I was in ISSS for about 18 years before joining Moroni here in Homebase. So um, I can ask the questions if you'd like.
Yeah, please do.
I am up. So another question from Seda is a little bit more about the community and how it's working for you. Sharon, I know you guys are using it. Geet, I don't know what experience you bring with that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that we are not using the chat function yet because of capacity issues. But I know that Sharon, you guys have used it and you really are look like, I don't know, have you used it or you're looking into it?
We've used it. We were really scared of it at first. I think our
Yeah.
director at the time was like, "Oh no, we're gonna have to moderate it. It's gonna be so labor intensive." But Homebase is set up with it. We'll get a notification if there's something was flagged. Like it's all built into the system, so it's been really easy. And our students have used it. It can. You really have to kind of prompt them and drive the engagement. But once they connect, like I said, right now, like they're usually connecting more about housing or things like that. But if we prompt them, hey, ask us a question, they'll type in questions and then we'll answer them. And it's worked well, but it it does take a little bit of just being mindful, prompting things. We've developed even like announcements, like a schedule of announcements, because announcements will drive engagement and then they might be more thinking about it. They're in home base, and so then they might ask us a question directly through the chat. And then I think they can chat with each other too. We don't really monitor that too much, but I think that that's something, Moroni, right, that you can see on your end.
Yeah, yeah. Anything that is questionable is auto flagged and sent for review, but we rarely see anything sent. So I think in the last intake we had one message that I saw that was filtered, that was sent for moderation, and it was one student sending a message to another student saying, "Hey, you're killing it, bro." Like it was just like, obviously that's going to get sent for review, but is a pretty benign message. So yeah, we really don't see that. I would also say um, maybe moderate expectations as to what students want from a community. So oftentimes engagement is early on or at key moments later on. And so what we've noticed is, we wouldn't recommend a standalone international student community on an ongoing basis because that's probably not what they're looking for. So we'll see engagement initially. So for example, so UC Davis will have a page that says, hey, we want to so like it's a welcome, it's get to know us, and then it's, hey, we want to get to know you. And so it clicks them over into the introduce yourself page within the community, where they can introduce themselves either through chat or through video, and that gets them one touch point. And then later on, it says, hey, check out housing. Click here to find a room or roommate. And so we're pinging them at appropriate times and saying, hey, this is available as a resource. And then they're seeing the announcements piece. A lot of times, what we're seeing, especially with scholars, is that they appreciate the community, but they're not actively engaging in the community. So they'll make comments about, hey, thank you for doing this, or it was cool to see this, or hey, thanks for posting pictures about the football game that scholars were invited to, et cetera. But they're typically not actively looking to engage throughout their time, which is kind of nice because it's not a lot of volume that you have to manage. But they're feeling connected to the community early on. They feel like there's a resource there that they can go to in a time of need. So, for example, in the student directory, they could say, hey, I want to connect with other students from Ghana. and they can go do that. But they're not actively like it's not so active that it's creating this additional workload on the international office because when a student is on campus, there are already so many points of engagement. There's their roommates, there's their dorm, there's their clubs that they're a part of, there's the different parts of their program, and so it's not something that we're seeing that students have this desire for a specific community for internationals on an ongoing basis. So I just would kind of look at what are they looking for, and then have the community complement that and kind of moderate expectations. A lot of the community is more outbound communication of email broadcasts, like mobile engagement pings of like, hey, we have this event coming up. Check this out. RSVP here. Things like that. So it really is going to be driven by the International Services Office. Is what we've traditionally seen there.
Yeah, another thing that I hear often too that schools really like about the community, and Sharon, I apologize if you already said this, but with the directory, a lot of times we get questions from students saying, "Hi, are there any other students here at the university from my home country?" And for us, when we're asked that question, we can't just provide a list of everyone in their emails who are from that country due to FERPA and privacy. And so then, it's taking that person name. You have to remember who it was that asked you, reach out to someone from the country that you remember is there, say, hey, is it okay if I share your information? Hopefully you did this in a time where you still have the sticky note that says who asked in the first place, and then you can send it back to them. But in the directory, you can actually just sort by where a person is from. So they self-select to be part of the community. It's not anyone's information who hasn't said that they would like to be included. And so a student can just go in and filter it by students from other countries. And I think that is something I hear consistently from schools that they really appreciate because it takes the awkwardness and the time out of that situation, and it gives students and scholars an immediate result to find others from their home country. Okay, so
Yeah,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to answer a few questions from the chat since I
Perfect.
was watching that. Okay, so Grace, yes, students opt in. So when they come in for the first time, there's toggles that they can turn off. So they can say, remove me completely. They can say, don't show me within the directory. Don't show my email. They can choose their level of engagement, but they opt in by default. And then at any point, they can always opt out. And they can unsubscribe from messages. So if you're sending updates and announcements, they can always unsubscribe from those. And so, yeah, they're actively opting in when they create their account. So there is that.
And I can tell you from my experience, because I've had over like 10,000 people use Homebase at two different institutions, like we've never had anyone come to us and say, I don't want my information, or I'm getting these emails and I don't know why, not a single person has ever reached out to us. Um, they decide what they want to do with it, and then they want to ignore it, that's totally fine. So just wanted to share.
Yeah, I
Okay,
have another question here, if it's unless you had something else, Moroni.
ready.
So, is there anything when you're working with students or scholars in your day-to-day business practices that you have changed or that you no longer do as a result of using Homebase?
I will say for us, one of the things that we significantly changed is like chasing down students who missed orientation, or like the way we communicate with students that like for whatever reason, visa delays, travel delays, personal reasons of this messaging of it's mandatory and like you need to come, and if you don't come you'll miss out on things. Like we are just trying overall to be super flexible when it comes to how we communicate and how we welcome students to campus, because that's their first impression of us. And I didn't love the idea that we were sending out messages that were like scary and threatening in a way unintentionally to students. So I think like that's been the big cultural shift for us. We try to meet students where they are. And also with like OPT and STEM OPT webinars, we still do them. We don't do as many. But we still do them, but we don't send this thing that everything is required, right? So it's just the shift has been these courses are part of the application benefit that you're trying to get in, whether it's you're trying to activate CVIS or you're trying to get OPT or CPT or STEM OPT. It's not like something that we're forcing. It's just part of the application now. And that's been really great for us.
Really quickly, there was a question about integration with different systems. So here's a quick overview. So we're working for this to really be a complement to existing systems. So so where are the gaps that are left from working with Synapsys or Teradata, or say you're a small office and you don't have any systems in place? How can this be complementary to what you have existing? And so filling in a lot of those gaps, but then also integrating with the systems. And so there is a Synapsys integration. We are continually working on improving that integration. I think we probably have 10 or 15 schools that are currently using that integration. We are working with Teradata on creating a new integration. There, we are actively working with VIA and JB International. All have agreed to complete an integration. So we have those integrations with those systems. We also have a public API or an API endpoint that you can use to connect with Slate, Banner, other systems. And so as students are admitted, they can automatically be filtering into Homebase. They can automatically be coming in and being provided those resources very quickly and very early on. And so yeah, that's a little bit of what we're seeing currently. One question about does anybody complete CVIS registration in Homebase? I would say there's a few smaller institutions that do. So you can create custom forms where students can fill out data. So you might create a registration, a CVIS registration form where they submit all of the information, and then on the admin side, you would be able to view that information. Please let me go back. That is not. So you'd be able to view that information and be able to take action accordingly. And so that would be available there. And then one other thing I thought I'd quickly show the editor here. So this is our F1 student orientation template. So it's pretty comprehensive. Some pages you'll definitely want to make sure you edit, like the welcome page. And so you'll want to put in, photos of your own campus. There's other resources that are already available, like the visa interview. We built this in partnership with former visa officers on what resources can we provide that are helpful. And so that's there. And then there's just additional resources throughout. And so you'll be able to say, okay, I like this on this page, but here I want to add additional content. So I want to add in a different image of our campus, or an example of an I-94, or whatever else. I want to create interactive. So like here's our OPT timeline. If you want to insert that, here's our financial document automation tool. Here's a process block or a timeline block to understand like the sequence of things. And so we have all sorts of different ways of presenting information. One of those I mentioned is a form, so you can collect information. But all of that is pretty straightforward. If you're on the call and you'd like access to a demo site and you don't already have that, feel free to send me an email, or Courtney. Courtney, if you don't mind putting your email address in the chat, and we can give you access to a demo site, which will give you so you can go play around with it. You're welcome to just experiment, play with it. And then another thing is we know that budgets are really tight right now. We know that staff time is really constrained. And so a few things there is we are committed to, we like supporting institutions. So if you currently have resources in Canvas or in a PowerPoint, we can migrate those resources into a module for you and do a lot of the initial build at no cost. And then you would just go and you just would do a review of those resources and then edit it from there. And we're very happy to provide that. And so that eases the burden on staff of launching. We also would say don't try and bite off too much too early. And so we would say, okay, pick one audience that you want to work with. So with Geet, they said, hey, we're going to launch with scholars first. And so the scholars are coming throughout the year. Let's get that going. And then we can ramp up for spring or winter or uh, fall semester with F1s. And so we would say take it as a sequence of things. Um, and then the other thing as far as price goes is we are very open to working with you on where your budget is. And so if you just don't have budget, let's do it. Let's do a trial period where you can experience it. You can come in, you can try it, and then that can help you build a case for long-term use. And that might be with one audience or it might be with multiple audiences. We're very open and flexible on that. And then as far as pricing goes, it starts at about 1,700 for the year, and goes up a little. It goes up from there depending upon the number of new international students and scholars you have per year. And so there's a little bit about that. Oh yeah, Courtney also made a comment. We'll be at regional conferences. I'll be at Region 1, 2, 8, and 10. Courtney will be at what, 3, 2, 7, 3, and 12. And so we'll be at a lot of the regional conferences, but also feel free to reach out with any questions at any point. All right. If there are no other questions, I think we can call that good. Thank you everybody for your time. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for Geet, who already left, but and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks so much, everyone.